Tim McGraw and Where the Green Grass Grows. Reading some stuff this morning about the D.B. Cooper lead.
Yes.
The FBI talking about their first fresh lead in 4 decades.
Was this huge news when it happened?
Oh, yeah.
This was wall to wall.
All over the place.
This became stuff of legend. Movie was made about it. Books been written about it. I mean, it was on the news every night.
It's the only unresolved case that the FBI's got
as far as hijacking. Yep, absolutely. And this was different back then. There was a lot of unrest in the country back then. We're still trying to get out of Vietnam, and there are protests, and everything's going on. And people are, at that stage of the game, more prone to just hit the street and protest, and that's what they thought Cooper was doing. It was some sort of protest, but nobody ever knew for sure. And hijackings were not the normal thing back then. They became, in the 70s, a big deal.
Right.
And they became more violent and all that. But he basically, according to the story that we're reading this morning, he got on a plane in November 71 in Portland. The plane took off. He handed the stewardess a note, says basically, I got a bomb in my briefcase. I'll use it. I want you to sit next to me. You're being hijacked. And he demanded $200,000 in 4 parachutes. So when they landed in Seattle, the FBI met him, gave him the money, gave him the parachutes. He let everybody off the plane except the pilot and the stewardess and the co-pilot. They took off again, and he told the pilot to fly to Mexico and stay under a certain level as far as altitude goes. And then just before they got back to Portland, he just opened the door and stepped out with that parachute and that money, and was never seen again.
And they assumed that he died, right?
Well, that's what they said. It was too rugged and too wild in the trees and the mountains and all. He had to have died.
Yeah.
And there've been several claims over the years that somebody confessed on their deathbed that they were D.B. Cooper and all that. So they really just had assumed he was dead. But now they think he may have survived, bought him a piece of land, and lived a natural life, died a natural death about 10 years ago.
Essentially getting away with it.
Yeah. Basically got the money and got away with it. And that's really, there was no more, he wasn't tied to any group or anything. He just
wanted the money.
I guess wanted.
It was a robbery.
It was a big robbery. Yeah. And that he was no expert parachute guy or anything. He just came up with this plan and was able to pull it off.
One of the theories is, though, that he was an Air Force veteran, and he was
I remember that's right.
familiar with airplanes, and he knew what to do as far as jumping is concerned. That's just one of the theories.
That he had to stay under 10,000 feet and all that, so they think that's where he got all that.
There's no way he could get away with that today.
Oh,
that would be impossible for him to commit that crime today.
No, he couldn't get in the bathroom at the airport today.
Yeah.
Without, he just couldn't do it. They don't think he had a bomb. Yeah. He just threatened it.
Well, I can tell you, they would assume that he did today, and they would have taken that plane out, and everybody on board would have died.
Yeah, or just shot him right there in the plane. One of those marshals are hiding, in the back.
They have the marshals now, but even they would have loaded the money and the parachutes with tracking devices.
They would have been able to track exactly where he went.
Yeah.
Technology today would not allow this story to even happen.
Right.
You're right. But anyway, they think they may know who he is, and they're checking into it now. I kind of hope they don't. I would just as soon, let the mystery. We got to have some kind of, legend. Billy the Kid, D.B. Cooper. Those. None of those stories are what we think they were. It's better just to have a little
the legend.
How would you like it to be? If he jumps out of this plane in the Pacific Northwest, what does he do?
He lives his life out and he dies, just like he did. Nobody ever knows the difference.
Or he turns into Sasquatch,
well, that's true. He could have just stayed in the mountains.
He may have been the gambler. He may have been Kenny Rogers.
You think so? Kenny Rogers
traveling on a train, and
Kenny Rogers was D.B. Cooper. Yeah.
Weasel.